Well, President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy will meet on Wednesday to discuss the country's debt ceiling and how to avoid a default. It will be the first time the two have met since a California Republican was elected Speaker. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane is at the Capitol with more on all of this.
With an ominous deadline looming this spring that could rattle the stock market, the job market, and 401ks from coast to coast, U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy told Face the Nation he wants to cut a deal with President Biden to raise the debt ceiling and prevent the country from defaulting on its loans.
There's some wasteful Washington spending that we can eliminate. So I want to sit down together, work out an agreement that we can move forward.
Is defense spending on the table?
Well, look, I want to make sure we're protected in our defense spending, but I want to make sure it's effective and efficient. I want to look at every single dollar we're spending.
President Biden has insisted it's too dangerous to negotiate over lifting the debt ceiling and risks triggering a recession.
I will not let anyone use the full faith and credit of the United States as a bargaining chip.
McCarthy is also facing questions for giving committee positions to controversial figures in his party.
If 142 people ask for me to resign, I'll resign.
Including New York's George Santos, under investigation for a series of lies about his past and increasing questions about his campaign finances, and Georgia's Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's repeated conspiracy theories.
She called for Fauci to be arrested and imprisoned, and she spread conspiracy theories. How's anyone supposed to take that work seriously and find that work credible?
Very well. You look at all of it, so you have all the questions out there. I think what the American
You think these are legitimate questions?
I think what the American public wants to see is an open dialogue in the process.
Wednesday's high-level meeting between Speaker McCarthy and President Biden happens about 1 week before the president's State of the Union address here, in which the policy differences between these two parties will be on vibrant display. Anne-Marie and Vlad.
All right. So is there any expectation, Scott, that McCarthy and Biden will be able to strike a deal during Wednesday's meeting?
Now, there's a first step that has to be taken. They have to agree that they're talking about a deal. The White House has been unequivocal that they're not going to negotiate over the debt ceiling or try to cut a deal. That doing so sets a dangerous precedent for future debt ceiling negotiations or approaches. So they have to get on the same bandwidth before they can have a discussion. We'll find out Wednesday if they're speaking the same language.
And, you know, McCarthy says, listen, Social Security is not on the table, Medicaid is not on the table, Medicare is not on the table. What is on the table? What are Republicans proposing?
Yeah, I really noticed over the past 96 hours, Republicans from all different parts of the spectrum in the Republican conference have been saying the same thing, that Social Security and Medicare are not going to be part of these discussions, as if it's a talking point for House Republicans moving forward. So what can you cut? Well, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer is kind of calling the bluff of Republicans here, saying once House Republicans put a cut on the House floor and get 218 votes for it, then we'll talk. With the understanding that many cuts to federal spending are actually politically unpopular. Taking away some program or some service the American people have become accustomed to may not be popular. One House Republican from Maryland told me they'd consider cutting some of the COVID aid spending that is still out there, some of the money that's been unspent. That may be politically salvageable, but not going to make a big dent in the national debt. So that problem remains. It's unclear what can be cut, but Republicans are insisting something must be cut.
So, Scott, as you're aware, on Face the Nation yesterday, Leader McCarthy also said he wants to find a, quote, reasonable and responsible way to lift the debt ceiling. Let's listen.
I know the president said he didn't want to have any discussions, but I think it's very important that our whole government is designed to find compromise. I want to find a reasonable and a responsible way that we can lift the debt ceiling but take control of this runaway spending. I mean, if you look at the last 4 years, the Democrats have increased spending by 30%, $400 billion. We're at 120% of GDP. We haven't been in this place to debt since World War II. So we can't continue down this path.
So is there room for bipartisanship on this issue?
There may be a necessity for bipartisanship on this issue, Vlad. There may be some coalition, some unique, unprecedented coalition of Democrats and Republicans who get together to get this done, notwithstanding their own party leadership, notwithstanding any negotiations or discussions that happened at the White House or with the Speaker of the House. So we'll look for signs of that. We did speak with the House Problem Solvers Caucus late last week, a coalition of House Democrats and House Republicans to try to work together on some projects, and they say they are going to discuss possible exit ramps on the debt ceiling. Let's see if they gain prominence between now and late spring when that ultimate deadline hits, Anne-Marie and Vlad, of breaching the debt ceiling and potentially causing an enormous shock to the U.S. economy.
That's quite an ambitious title, Problem Solvers. It's half superhero, half
That's right.
lawmaker. Let's see if they can live up to it. The Justice Department says that it's working on briefing lawmakers about the classified documents that were discovered in the homes of President Biden and former President Trump. What's the latest that you're hearing about this?
We have very dissatisfied U.S. senators here, Anne-Marie, that they haven't gotten the information they believe they're entitled to as senators or that they need about these classified documents or documents marked classified. They were briefed last week by the Director of National Intelligence and came away very unhappy with what they call limited information on an important topic. That's both Democrats and Republicans. So there is pressure rising on the Biden administration to give senators more information about the reviews and what might have been exposed or compromised by documents marked classified being outside where they're supposed to be. The fastest way, the most effective and efficient way to anger U.S. senators is to deprive them of information to which they feel entitled. So that's going to be an issue that the Senate and members of the Biden administration will take up likely in the coming days, if not the coming hours.
All right, Scott, we always appreciate your reporting. Thank you very much, my friend.